Welcome to a special edition of Spotlight. I'm Ed Codi, and welcome our guest from AT&T Sports, the best hockey analyst in the business, Jay Caufield. Jay, thanks for joining us. Hey, Jay, is it just me? It seemed like yesterday was January, now it's May, and we're headed in the first round of the hockey playoffs. Where'd this time go?
I know, it is unbelievable. First of all, thanks you for the very nice introduction. It's good to talk to you again. I'm not sure. It is kind of wild. And in fact, I mean, if you look at the time frame, the NHL would normally be in the second round of the playoffs. So here we are in May, and a great time for all the players and the fans, because I don't think there's really anything. I mean, we love playoffs of any sport. I'm not sure there's anything better than playoff hockey, and I think everybody's ready to get it going and see what the Penguins can do.
It's the greatest gauntlet to a championship in all of pro sports. You have to win 16. Jay, let's start with a general question I want to ask you. The Pens up and down in the Metro from first place, and then stumbled at the finish line to finish in third, just ahead of Washington. What happened the last quarter of this season in general, why they were so up and down in their play?
Yeah, and it's probably a mix of things, from injuries to guys were still dealing with COVID. Then you had other, non-COVID related illness, suspensions, guys going cold. I mean, a number of players who had a good first half went cold in the second half. And when you have that, and goaltending stepped back a little bit. Jari was great all year, and then maybe his numbers came down a little bit. He stumbled a little bit, but for the most part, I blame it on all the things I just mentioned, from the injuries to suspensions to guys who had a good start to the season and then it got expanded roles, couldn't keep that going. And hence you get the result that you do. Then you got to play around with lines, Ed. Then you're moving Rust off of the Crosby line, which was, if not the best, at times one of the best lines in hockey. So, and that's been a disruption. I think they're trying anything and everything to find not just secondary scoring, but scoring from the second line, if you will, Ed. And I think all those things kind of come into play. And it's a very long year, and you're going to go through lulls. And every team is going to have a lull. The Penguins had it late in the season. So, hey, look, you can easily turn it around. Can it happen quickly? I don't know, Ed, but for me, they certainly all have a new, you look at the sheet, Kapanen being one. They're all starting at zeros as they start the first game of the playoffs, and I expect him, and hopefully for him, that he can get it going.
Well, you look at some of the positives. Gensel and Crosby each with 84 points, a great scoring 1-2 punch there that they have. Malkin came on after being out with an injury and picked his game up. But I have some concerns or issues that I'm going to ask you about and hear you address them. To me, there are three main issues. One, their power play going through a 1-21 slump, and then turnovers and slow transition play, and then their penalty kill.
Okay, so if you look at the power play, it's really been kind of all year long around 20th in the league, and bouncing up and down. Then Malkin comes back in after being out. Then you can see the spark and what that means, what that makes the power play, the options that are on it for the five guys that are out there. They're extensive. So they start to get themselves on a little bit of a roll, climbing up the ladder as far as positioning in the NHL with the power play. Then Malkin gets suspended, so he's out 4 games. Then the power play went dark, right? So it goes dry, and they couldn't find it, no rhythm. And here you are it's rounding out the season. So to your point, I think the other part too, Ed, they weren't getting on the power to play that much. And the Penguins game is built on speed, holding on to pucks in the offensive zone. As you mentioned, transition game, quick transition game. For some reason, a lot of that disappeared. And when that disappears, the speed of the Penguins goes away. Then you're not getting the hooks, the trips, the holds, because teams can't keep up with you. The Penguins were not getting to the power play for, I believe, the reasons that I just mentioned. So that when you get on the power play, you get looks. And you know what? Also, how many calls? I mean, if you look at what the league and you look across the league, you just want to be able to, if you can get yourself on the power play 3 to 4 times a night, that's a good thing. The Penguins weren't getting that over that stretch that you mentioned. So I think a big part will be their game in general. And if they can find it again, then the power play is going to be so huge And that's why I think it's a real good point that you mentioned at first, Ed, because it's going to be so big. Special teams are so big in all the time, but in the playoffs, there's a huge spotlight on it. So I expect that to get better as we move forward. I think your second point, what was the second part of the question?
The turnovers in transition, and then the
Right.
last part was the penalty kill.
Okay, so the transition game, as I just little mentioned about it. I mean, the quick game wasn't there. They weren't making teams have to work so hard in the defensive zone. And then when they come out, they got to make a change, and then maybe you can get something off of a transition game in the rush game, if you will. They weren't getting that. So I expect that to be different. I expect the tempo of the game tomorrow night to go to another level. It happens in general. It happens from preseason, Ed, to regular season, then to the playoffs. So I think the game will be quicker. I expect the Penguins to be quicker along with it. As far as the penalty kill, Teddy Bluger goes down with an injury. That was a big thing to come back from as a player as well. He's trying to find his game. I think there's been games he's been good. I know people are mentioning he's not the same player. Well, sometimes it's who you're with. It's a juggling to me. I thought he was really good with Heinen and McGinn. And if everybody comes back healthy, I wouldn't mind seeing Bluger with Heinen and McGinn. I know they're not going to do that, but there was a comfort zone between those three players. They were effective. They read off of each other well, so on and so forth. But I think movement of players is a big thing. Usually Teddy Bluger makes guys better around him because he's so smart. But I think it's been just a mix of that. I attribute a lot of the issues to things that I just mentioned. I think the movement of personnel, shuffling around, and they couldn't find the groove that they needed. And it was evident in the last 30 games. So I expect that to change. You're starting off the playoffs best of 7. And I think the lineup we see, let's hope that's what they go with and they can stay with until maybe the healthy body gets back.
Jay, you mentioned about the transition and the speed, and that was paramount in the 5-1 loss to Edmonton. As I watch it, I'm thinking, are the Pens this slow? But Connor David just seemed to fly right by the Pens, and they just didn't respond at all in the transitions.
Yeah. You know what, Ed, he makes everybody look that way when he plays the game, and he makes his team look faster as a team. The fact of the matter is he's the fastest player on the planet. I have never seen a player in all the years I've been involved with hockey have the wheels that he does, the ability to, and his hands keep up with it. That's the other part. There's been guys that have been fast, but there's not guys that are fast and have the hands that go with it and the mind and the vision. Well, he has all that, obviously. He's that generational talent like we've seen come through here. But I think that was a bad game. That was a game that I know the fans let the players know it, not one you want to see. Again, there's a mix of that. That's attitude. You got to come out and play the game hard, and you got to keep it simple. But a player like McDavid just changes the dynamic completely. They haven't had the success out there in Edmonton until they do, until they build around him enough. I don't know if you'll see him get to that promised land, quote unquote, but he's the best player in the game right now, and he showed it the other night in Pittsburgh. And again, his speed just backs people off, Ed, that we've never seen before.
Well, the Pens are off. They start this first round with the New York Rangers, who took the series 3-1 from the Pens, and their goalie, Igor, the goal stuffer, stopped 97 of 101 shots. And New York, I think it's a huge difference, outscored the Pens in that series 11-4. So what was your take on those 4 games?
Yeah, there was only, in my opinion, one game, Ed. One game was a blowout kind of thing. That 5-1 game in New York. And the numbers, I mean, it's kind of wild. When you look back at that game, that was when the Pens just didn't have it in all phases of the game. Every other game besides that, Ed, I are close. I mean, you look at the games, I believe the Penguins, even if you looked at shots on goal and that type of thing, they almost are identical. I mean, the hits per game are very close. The shots on goal per game are very close. The Penguins had the better power play through the 4 games. The one game was the one that the Rangers built off of. When they got that 5-1 win in New York, they embarrassed the Penguins, and then they let them know it every game after that. I think the Penguins, though, if you look across the board, you said it, Shesterkin, he's been the difference. Now, if you get him on a little bit of a, maybe, hey, nothing better than to see him be a little cold. If the Penguins play him, they're going to need that. They're going to need, by the way, when I mentioned about numbers and shots on goal, The one thing that was evident in a couple of the games, Ed, were the grade A chances given up. The Penguins gave up more to the Rangers, but when the Penguins got their opportunities, Shesterkin was better. Now, if that stays the same, then the Penguins are going to have a tough series. I believe they can get to them. I believe they need traffic, all those things, because the fact of the matter is the series is kind of even. But I'll say one more thing, and it's not to be pie in the sky or homerish. I'm saying the fact that the Penguins don't get goal scoring from the Malkin line 5-on-5. That's going to be hard to beat any of the teams that are in the playoffs right now. They need that distribution. They need goals spread throughout their lineup. It can't just be the Crosby line. If they get some production from the Malkin line, and we always talk about bottom six. If they can sprinkle that in, and the Penguins get solid goaltending, that's what they need. But if they give up great chances and Shesterkin is outstanding, it's going to be it's tough to beat a really hot goaltender, and he certainly was that all year. But they haven't been in this right now, right? They haven't faced here's the playoffs. I mean, this is a different animal. So I always believe there's hope in this. I think with Sidney Crosby in the lineup, there always is. They just need solid goaltending going forward and see if they can solve Shesterkin, because for the most part, those 4 games that were pretty even.
Well, what kind of a plan do the Pens have to come up with? They have some potent offense too, and Kreider in that.
Right.
I think Panarin's almost close to 100 points. So what do the Pens have to do to slow these 2 guys down?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to get their opportunities, and that's a good point. The 2 players, you got Kreider, you got Zibanejad, you've got Panarin, who great to watch. That player is outstanding, fun to watch. He makes so much happen. He distributes the puck. You've got Fox on the blue line. They're physical. And to me, so what do you need to do? You need to manage the puck through the neutral zone. You need to be smart with your when you dump the puck in the offensive zone. You need to be strong on your forecheck and support. And then from there, then you also, now I'll rattle it off, Ed. If it turns over and goes the other way, you need numbers back. You need great back pressure so your D can step up and not give them the zone, not give them the blue line coming in. So for me, managing the puck to the neutral zone, it's a guy's play with and without the puck. Where are you at positioning wise? Are you supporting when you get on the wall? And again, as I said, Penguins holding on the pucks in the offensive zone, that creates havoc. It creates opportunities. It opens up the point so you can go low to high and then get the puck to the net. And you need traffic. You need traffic all night long in front of Shesterkin. And the other thing I would do, I would make sure every time I have a chance to hit Fox, finish your check on Fox and don't let him beat you up the ice. That's the thing. You finish your check and it doesn't end there. You can't let him jump up ahead of you. That's all the things, because every team is going to say the same thing. Guarantee it, Ed. Every team looks at it. You got to be smart with all the things, but the little mistakes, the blue lines are so important. Like in my defensive zone, I have to make sure that I get it out of my own blue line if I don't have a play. You got to get it out. You can't turn it over there. And when you're going in, you got to make sure you get it deep if you don't have an odd man rush. If it's a 3-on-3, 2-on-2, you can try and work and make something happen and look for a trailer. But 3-on-3, if there's nothing there, get the puck deep and get on your forecheck. They're the areas where you do not want to turn it over going into the zone and have guys going ahead and then the Rangers going back at you. That's the things that'll beat the Penguins if they do that.
Jay, here's something I was surprised to see, and it tells you how good the Rangers are. They're one of only a few teams that are ranked at the top in both power play and penalty kill.
Yeah. When you usually find yourself in the top 10 in both categories, you're going to be successful. Well, they're top 10. When you look at the penalty kill, we know it. When you have a good unit, you're in sync. Guys are aggressive. They take pride in it. But the fact of the matter is you need your goaltender. You need your goaltender to be your best. And obviously Shesterkin was just that for them. That helps them be in the position they are. And Georgiev, the same thing, solid goaltender, solid backup. Shesterkin just took it over. So you fall in that category that way. Then you look at their power play. Chris Kreider had an unbelievable season, right, Ed? Excuse me. He had an unbelievable year.
1 of 4 with 50 goals.
Yeah. So you try and eliminate. You got to be smart. You got to make sure you get your clears 200 feet, and then you move on.
Hey, Jay, let's take a look at that. Depends at their lines and any changes you see coming in your evaluation, like line 1, let's go with Gensel, Crosby, and or is it Rust, or you make a change? I know there's some talk about Rust and Malkin together. They had a 65% percentage expected goal. So do you leave Rust up there in the right wing, or do you drop him back and then and make an exchange with maybe Raquel or Heinen? What are you looking at with these first
Well,
two?
until Zucker comes back, I think you're going to see. I would rather see Rust up with Crosby. They went back to that the other night. Brian Rust went quiet, and I think it's only not. I mean, he's such a great player and strong player and consistent player. I believe it's 8 or 9 games without a point, and a lot of that borders when it mirrors when he left Crosby's line and went down with Malkin, and then Malkin was out. So a lot comes into play there. I know they're trying to spread the wealth, but I would go back with Crosby, Rust, and Gensel. Then until Zucker comes back in the lineup, it's going to be Raquel, Malkin, and probably Heinen, as you just mentioned. Then you get into Carter line and Kapanen and McGinn, and then probably Bluger, Boyle, and Rodriguez. That's where that's how it was the other night. I expect it to be the same going into tomorrow night's game. And if anything's going sideways, I know they called up Drew O'Connor, and other players will come up as well. I expect to see him get a lineup at the play. But it's funny how it works, Ed, because if the Penguins don't win a game, or if they don't win one game, it's going to be difficult. But if you split in New York, are you really going to change anything in the lineup? The only thing that would change would be if Zucker comes back and you want to get that in the lineup. Other than that, everything will stay status quo. So I think the lineup that we pretty much see is going to be it. And if Zucker makes it back for game 3, then the question is going to be who's out of the lineup. And a logical choice right now, unless Kapanen produces in games 1 and 2, he could be the odd man out when they get to game 3 back here if Zucker's in the lineup.
Well, I was just going to ask you that. As line 3, has this line been somewhat of a disappointment in their ability to score?
Yeah, and it's a high score, just like bingo balls, right, Ed? I mean, we never know who the lines are, but if you do look at it, if you do look at the third line, I mean, as I mentioned, halfway through the season, guys are producing and scoring. After that point, it's gone south. And a lightning rod for that is Kapanen, because he just hasn't produced at the numbers that they expect and that they need. And for the amount that they pay a player like that, you need production, and it hasn't happened. And it's not. There's probably nobody feels worse about it than him as a player. So yeah, you have to get that. You got to get the production, just goals sprinkled in here or there, and be strong defensively on those bottom 6 roles. And then you go from there. And as I mentioned, I truly believe if they don't get production from the Malkin line 5-on-5, it's going to be tough. But yeah, they're not happy with it. And as I said, though, everybody starts the playoffs. Everybody's numbers are 0. And this is a time for Kapanen to turn around. He's in the lineup. He has a reprieve, if you ask me, because of health issues with guys here who would be out of the lineup, and he's in it. He can make something happen here in game 1 and 2. And everybody will forget about what happened through the regular season.
Hey, Jay, tell me if this sounds crazy or not, but that fourth line with Boyle, Bluger, and very versatility of Rodriguez,
Yep.
Is it a crazy thing to say flip the third and fourth lines?
No, it's not crazy in a sense, though, Ed. But Jeff Carter is your third line center. But what you're saying makes sense. I mean, but they're going to get their minutes through penalty killing, taking defensive zone draws, being responsible. And it's crazy. It's kind of wild, though. But if you look at the numbers, their production is higher than what could be on your third line right now because of where it's at. But no, I think you'll see Carter be that. It's not crazy to say it, though, Ed. I understand where you're coming from. But Carter's the Penguins' third line center, and I expect them to. Let me tell you, it really breathes new life into a guy when you start the playoffs in game 1. The excitement that goes with it, you'll see fresh legs. Guys will be ready to go, and I expect that third line to be a real key part. It's almost funny. I almost think too, Ed. We always talk bottom 6 and top 6. It's almost you almost now have to include that third line to be as productive. And I still say it today, 1 and 2's got to be good, really good and produce. but you need that from the third line as well. And I think that's where the game's evolved. The skill of players today and all lines, you need production from 1 through 3, and your fourth line's got to be that shutdown, defensive zone draws, kill penalties, be guys that assume those roles, and be really good and chip in. It's funny how it's spread out and how it's changed over time, but that's where I see it right now, and I don't expect it to be any different than Carter on that third line slot, and hopefully they can be big as this series gets going.
Hey, Jay, let's look at the defensive pairings and tell me what you think, and if any changes. That first pairing, Dumoulin and Letang, who's been very solid, and then the second with Matheson and Ruhwedel, and then on the third, Pettersson and Marino.
Yeah, that's the lineup. That's what it's going to be. Look, if you're getting pushed around, if you're getting moved around, I expect I'm big, and I know the coaching staff is too. The lefty-righty pairs are big, right? You got to be, the game is quick. They're on you fast, and you don't want that one time where you have a righty on the left side get caught because he's in between being on the offside. I think Friedman did an outstanding job playing the offside, and they're not going to be hesitant to go to him. They're going to, if Pettersson isn't having a good series, and I mentioned about a lightning rod up front. Pettersson's a lightning rod on the defensive core, right? So for me, I look at it that that's who I would rather have them. That's the lineup. That's what they need to go with. They all need to play up their game. Letang plays the same way all the time. Dumoulin and Letang, that's the pair. They tried to shake things up and see who could play with who. But Dumoulin and Letang, Matheson and Ruhwedel, who's earned that opportunity to play with Matheson. Matheson's earned the top 4 minutes, and he's so dynamic. And Ruhwedel and Marino and Pettersson have to be strong, solid, and all the areas that we talked about, whether you want to jump up into a play, strong, great gaps through the neutral zone, and great first passes, and be that guy that can chip in, because Marino can jump up. Pettersson will jump up. Marino's got to be that guy that steps his game up even another level. And I expect that to happen as well.
Hey, Jay, looking at the power play units, I think the unit is solid with Russ, Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, and Letang. And the second one, I think if there's any change possibly coming, would be with Kasperi.
Yeah, I do too. Look, it's funny though, guys get sometimes something that helps a player get off the number or get off and get into a hot streak, Ed, is that opportunity to get on the power play. But that second unit doesn't get much, right? They get, if you see we've watched the Penguins be out there for a minute and a half, the first unit, they're controlling play. Then they make a change, and that second unit might get out there for 30 seconds, hopefully, for them. But yeah, I mean, I could easily see that happening. It's just but when you go through the numbers, though, Kapanen's, he's in the lineup to be a guy that produces, and you got to have him in that role where if you don't give him any power play time, you don't know what happens to a guy's head that way, Ed. I think you'll see him. Yeah, I mean, they got to get something going. They can pick that. The second unit can be big in this. I mean, if Shesterkin's that good, you get the second unit out. Somebody like Kapanen could be a guy that can change this a little bit. So I hope he gets the look, and hope he's solid in these first couple games.
Well, let's go to the guys who have the weight of the world on their backs when playoffs start, the goalies. So Jari's out, injured, could be an indefinite period of time. So Casey DeSmith in there. I think he was 10, 6, and 5. And then I have not seen his backup play, Louis Domingue. So your take on the goalie situation?
Yeah. Listen, DeSmith's numbers have been. He had a slow start, and he got his numbers up to that 914 save percentage, something like that. He's a battler. He's not big in the net. He's not big in stature, but he plays big, right? So he's athletic. He moves. He challenges, and when he's doing that, he's very good. And he'll frustrate players because they think they have something, and all of a sudden he gets a leg out. So Ed, he needs to be really good, and we know that. And I would say that about Jari right now. Anything you got, and now Jari, what I did hear announced was that he's day-to-day now. So, he's not available for games 1 and 2, but he could be as you come back to Pittsburgh. Okay, so my opinion is, if the Penguins want to be in good shape, you need to split, and if you can steal both, that's unbelievable. And if that's the case, then it's DeSmith's net. I still feel like it's his net anyway. through this series, and not sure just because even if Jari comes back, is able to be a backup for game 3, he hasn't had the game, the timing and all that. But hey, look, they're unique athletes, and the pressure of the world is on them, Ed. I expect the Smith to be good. He has to be good. They're going to get great looks. But if the Penguins can tighten up across the board with what we said in the beginning of this interview, if they can be good in the areas that we discussed, that'll help the Smith. You want to let him see the puck. You got to make sure you take care of sticks and bodies in front. You can't just get the body. You got to get a stick of a player. All those things will help Casey DeSmith. I expect him to have this is his opportunity. I know he's been the backup, but this is his opportunity. He's a starter, getting in opening games in New York. And anybody and everybody, if you're in that position, you worked your whole life to be there. And now this is his look. And hopefully he has a great one.
Well, Jay, in the final minute here or two, the Pens have the third oldest team in the National Hockey League. The last 3 years in the playoffs, just 3-11. So I think the pressure is on everyone. It's on the whole team. There could be major changes if they don't do well. And I think the pressure is on Sullivan too. So what can they do, you see, that will be different this year in the playoffs than the previous 3?
Probably that they haven't won a series in 4 years. I think Crosby is hungry, not going to let it. New York's not going to have an easy series, and it's going to be all the things we talked about, goaltending, all that. I think the only thing is, Ed, they step up and they need everybody. They can't be anybody that doesn't is like just taking a free ride. I mean, you're in the lineup, they're expecting you to do a role. And if they get the goaltending, you need goaltending. You're Mike Sullivan, you need your goaltender to be good. You need your lines to produce, to do what you're paid to do. They need to be solid. And if you're getting opportunities and the goaltender is better than you on a given night, that can happen. But what they're expecting these guys is to come out there, perform, get the looks that you need, play the game hard, smart, defensively. When you come back, all the things we talked about before too. Support, hard on the forecheck, hold on the pucks. If it's going the other way, strong back pressure. All that kind of thing, and your play with and without the puck is so important. New York, I'm telling you, Penguins are the underdog, but it's going to be tighter than that. I'm telling you, and again, I'm saying that being that all things being equal, if the goaltending is solid for the Penguins, this is going to be a real good series. And I expect the Penguins to come out.
Thanks for your time. It's always great having you on. I can go on for another half an hour with you. Appreciate your time. Yep. Look forward to hearing your commentary and analysis. Thanks for joining us. Good luck to the Pens.
Thanks, Ed. Always a pleasure to talk to you too. You take care.
You too. Bye. Okay.
From high school sports to community events and beyond, you can find all of your favorite local shows on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.
Hi, I'm Tricia from the Butler Buzz. You can watch my show or other local programming like Up for Adoption or Hunting Nostalgia, only on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.
Check us out right now on Channel 100 or search Armstrong Neighborhood Channel on YouTube for playlists and much more. Spirit, town pride, community. This is the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.